A Bay Area groundskeeper claimed the weed killer Roundup gave him cancer. And now, after a landmark ruling against chemical giant Monsanto, a San Francisco jury has awarded him a total of almost $300 million. The decision against Monsanto came down late this afternoon.
The groundskeeper for Benicia Unified used the popular weed killer Roundup. We have team coverage on the verdict. Andria Borba has reaction from backyard gardeners. But we begin with Julie Watts. She's at the courthouse in San Francisco. Julie?
Yeah, Liz, this jury ordered Monsanto to pay a lot of money, specifically $39.2 million in compensatory damages, but more notably, another $250 million in punitive damages because they unanimously found that Monsanto acted with malice.
Did Monsanto fail to adequately warn of the danger or instruct on the safe use of Roundup Pro or Ranger Pro? Answer, yes. Was Monsanto's failure to warn a substantial factor in causing harm to Mr. Johnson? Answer, yes.
It was a unanimous verdict from a San Francisco jury. They found not only did Monsanto's product cause harm, but that Monsanto was negligent in not warning it could cause harm, and that their actions constituted malice, oppression, or fraud and should be punished. Lawyers for both sides say the jury was very educated and took copious notes.
In truth, I've never seen a jury that paid attention and asked the kind of questions that this jury is. They asked one question about a specific mouse cohort in one of the studies, one of the kind of an obscure study from the 1980s, and that was, I think, even difficult for some of the attorneys to answer.
I don't know how they got it wrong, but they did. They got it wrong.
46-year-old Lee Johnson is a former groundskeeper for Benicia Unified School District. He's dying from non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and he blames the corporate giant Monsanto. Johnson's lawyers directly link his cancer to his continued exposure to glyphosate, the active ingredient in weed killers like Roundup. He's one of about 4,000 people across the country suing Monsanto for failing to warn them the chemicals could cause cancer. Still, Monsanto argues the chemicals are safe, classified as low toxicity by the EPA. But Johnson's lawyers argue the EPA relies on evidence from Monsanto. And even the EPA recommends avoiding an area for 12 hours after glyphosate's been sprayed. Meanwhile, the state of California lists glyphosate as a chemical, quote, known to cause cancer based on evidence from the World Health Organization's research body on cancer. Johnson's lawyers argue Monsanto could have prevented his cancer with a warning. Monsanto argues their product does not cause cancer. Now, Monsanto sued the state of California to keep cancer warnings off products with glyphosate. A judge ordered a stay, and that case is ongoing. Meanwhile, Monsanto says they will appeal this verdict. Ken and Liz.
All right, Julie, thanks. A short time ago, Dwayne Lee Johnson thanked his legal team, his family, and the public for their support through this lengthy process.
Since the beginning of this case, I received a lot of support and a lot of thank you and a lot of prayer and a lot of everything, just good energy from a lot of people that I don't even know, and I'm glad to be here to help with this situation after I learned about Roundup and glyphosate and everything. I'm glad to be here to be able to help with a cause that's way bigger than me. So hopefully this thing will start to get the attention that it needs to get right so folks can make a good choice.
Meantime, we've reached out to gardeners and nursery workers about today's verdict.
Some say they got rid of the popular weed killer years ago. Let's get right to KPIX 5's Andria Borba. She's live in Daly City. Andria?
Well, Alan, many of the people we spoke to out here did not know about the trial, let alone its outcome at this point. Now, the ingredient in question in this trial is glyphosate, used in both pro-strength Ranger Pro and consumer-grade Roundup. But one man we spoke with outside the Home Depot in Daly City said he discontinued using the herbicide years ago, concerned about the safety of the product.
It was just too questionable what it did to the property and how long it stayed in the ground, and if you want to grow vegetables, what your carrots going to be soaked in this stuff, and so I just stopped using it.
Now, some smaller garden centers in the Bay Area pulled Roundup from their shelves years ago, but larger retailers like Home Depot and Lowe's continue to stock it. Now, we reached out to both Home Depot and Lowe's to see if they will continue to stock Roundup and its cousins with glyphosate in it. We have not heard back yet at this time. Live in Daly City, Andria Borba, KPIX 5. Liz, Alan?
All right, Andrea, thanks so much. KPIX 5 political reporter Melissa Caen, who is also an attorney, joining us. On appeal, does Monsanto have a chance?
A small one, maybe. It's really, really hard to get a judge to overturn a jury verdict. Look, our American judicial system puts a lot of faith in the juries because they're there, they see the witnesses, they assess how much they trust them, how truthful they are, and appellate judges just aren't willing to second guess that usually. So very, very difficult to do. What they may be able to do, which is still really difficult, is try to get some of those damages reduced, some of the punitive damages reduced. But in terms of flipping from sort of not liable to liable, liable to not liable, it's just a really extraordinary thing for a judge to do that. Very, very small chance.
And there are many other cases similar to this one, blaming Monsanto for illnesses. What impact will the results of this case have on those?
Well, I mean, to the extent other jurors have heard about this case, that would certainly be an impact. But it's not a technical precedent. You couldn't just walk into a courthouse tomorrow and say, hey, I have similar circumstances, so give me a judgment in my favor. It's not technically precedent, but in the minds of the folks at Monsanto, for sure, who are looking at the prospect of trying this case repeatedly throughout the nation, this does act as a bit of precedent, and they're looking at this as sort of the worst case scenario and a likely scenario as they go forward and probably settle out a lot of these cases.
And what do you read into this one, that it was a San Francisco jury that found them liable?
Well, exactly. So we've talked about how earlier about how smart these jurors were, how educated they were. And look, Monsanto's defense was the science, and you had a jury that was very interested in the science. San Francisco statistically has a lot of very educated folks. So if you can't win in a town with a jury made up of very smart, scientifically interested people, it doesn't bode well for trials in other places where folks don't have as many degrees or are not as interested in science as these people are. So I'm sure that's something that folks at Monsanto are going to be taking into account as they look at trials elsewhere.
Sure.
If you can't win in San Francisco, it's unclear where you're going to be able to win.
I think I read the next trial's coming up in the fall in St. Louis, so we'll follow that one, I'm sure.
If it goes to trial.
Yeah, if it does. Melissa, thanks.